Good morning, everyone, and salams. Welcome to another exciting episode of our webinar. If you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up, please. Fantastic. Guys, today is going to be a super exciting webinar because we've got a very special guest. We've got Mubeen Lumbart. And Mubeen is what I like to call, I'm going to read out his bio, but he is what I like to call a Java guru. This guy is amazing at Java. Now, Mubeen is the director of a company called Fingerprint Software. So you can see that he's not just, some ordinary guy here. He's the director of the company, and it's quite an amazing company that does all sorts of development with a particular focus on the Java ecosystem. Now, Mubeen is not just a guest here. He is also, those of you that have enrolled for the Java one-year certification qualification, Mubeen is actually your instructor. He's the guy that's going to, you were basically going to be instructed by him. And not just that, but some of you might just end up working for Mubeen because he's got his eye on you guys, and he's looking at hiring from IT Varsity. So Fingerprint Software and IT Varsity are working together to find the best of the best in the Java space, and you might just get hired, and that's great stuff. But for those of you who are doing the Python stuff, who are doing the Python qualification, not to worry, because Fingerprint Software is also thinking of introducing Python shortly. So there's probably an avenue for you there. Now, I just want to go through Mubeen's bio very quickly. It's a lengthy bio, and it's very impressive. Mubeen started in the world of development in the year 2000. I started, about eight years after that. So Mubeen has a BSc degree from UJ, and he's worked for an amazing list of companies, worked for and with, including Nashua Mobile, MTN, British Telecom, Swiss Telecom, Ultimate Dream Teams, CBW, Sasol, Regent Insurance. It just goes on and on and on. And his specialities lie in, as I said, Java, Spring Boot, and Angular. But also, he's got a whole lot of other skills under his belt, most of which are necessary in the Java space. Things like Hibernate, JWQ, JSP, JEE, Maven, JUnit, Docker, Git, Apache, JBoss, Tomcat, and it just goes on and on and on and on. So pretty impressive, pretty amazing. And I just want to thank Mubeen for taking out time from his extremely hectic day, and for joining us here. And so we're going to be talking to him, and you guys will have the opportunity to ask him questions and impress him, because like I said, this guy could probably hire some of you guys. Mubeen, Jazakallah, thank you for being here, and I'm really grateful, and I'm so glad that my students are getting exposure to someone like yourself.
Assalamu alaikum, and hi to everyone. I'm happy to be here. I am. I mean, this is a maiden journey for me in terms of educating people online. We do a lot of mentoring, and that is part of the reason of us actually starting our entity, our business. Obviously, it has started in approximately 2005, 2006. We actually initiated the company, and the reason we did this was a demand for skill, Java skill out in the market. And I'm just turn on my video so I'm not a bit rude here. So obviously there's a demand for Java skill in the market. But with that, what we realized is a lot of people come out of university. We were very fortunate in that our mentors actually gave us the opportunity to grow in a certain way. And we found that when people came out into the market, they had theoretical knowledge, but that generally was not what was required in the job market. So what we wanted to do is actually mentor them in a specific way. And what I'm referring to here is we've got people that write Java code, but there's a way of writing Java code and there's a correct way of writing Java code. And not only in Java, in any language, there's clean code and there's clean code and different ways of actually developing or implementing software. We also have to look at things like architecture. How do we design? How do we implement? How do we use tooling, etc.? And this is fundamentally what we want to achieve out of the creation of our entity, as to call it that. What we do time to time is obviously we do look for resources, and that is why we've collaborated with Bilal to say that, listen here, we want to be involved in mentoring your Java developers, possibly Python as we move along, SQL as well, Docker, Maven. So we mind mapped with him a lot of things, but naturally we can't do everything in one course. So we'll take it step by step. But the idea is then to look for candidates, bring them on board, mentor them, try and get them out into the market so they get the right type of experience, right type of mentorship, hopefully, to become better developers and go out there and launch their careers. It may be with IT Varsity, it may be with Fingerprints, it may be with other entities as well. But as I mentioned to Bilal many times, it's not just about the development experience with us. What we try to do is we like to also develop people as human beings, which is something I think is extremely important in today's time. We find that when we're dealing with people, they come from backgrounds, different types of backgrounds. Some obviously come from poorer backgrounds, some more from affluent backgrounds. Some don't even know why they came into IT, and they start realizing that, you know what, this is a different ballgame. It's not just like going out there and studying. There's a lot of learning that needs to happen, a lot of perseverance that is required. Accept that things are going to break. How do we deal with it? How do we recover from it? So these are things we try to teach people along the way. Having said that, we also want to build leadership. And this, I think, is a really important thing. I've stressed this with Bilal. I'm like, how do we build leadership? How do we grow people so that they can stand on their own 2 feet, can understand how do I go out there? And tomorrow, if you start your own entity and it's a success, we'd just be happy for you. It's we were part of your journey, and you went and you did achieved, made something, whether it's with us, whether it's on your own. That's great. That would be awesome. As long as we can see people developing. There's a shortage of skills in our country. We know that. I always tell the guys in my office, the conveyor belt is broken. How do we repair the conveyor belt? Because the issue we're having in the job market, to be honest, is we've got guys coming here, they tell us, I've got 3 years experience, I've got 5 years experience. And I'm saying to them, okay, let's have this discussion. I don't like to call it interviews. I call it discussions. Let's have these discussions and let's chat about your skill, what you've done, your experience, etc. And I have my junior sitting some of these discussions. And at the end of it, I evaluate this, and I have to be sincere and say that with humility, though, my juniors have touched a lot more code than they have better experience than them, have touched more technology than them. And the reason is because of the type of work we do. Being a startup, we get to touch a lot of technologies because clients want different things. We spoke of Java. Yes, we are in the Java ecosystem, but we're touching on frameworks like Flutter, right, which is for mobile applications. We used to use Ionic. Now we're moving to Flutter. Python is out there, but there's another language called Mojo, which I learned about, which is coming up and coming for AI. Something amazing, something new. So we're going to have to go and delve in that, compare that. What's Mojo? What's Python? How do they play? What gives us better outcomes? So the nice thing about working for smaller companies, especially in the initial years, is your development growth is extreme. It's extreme. And when you then go out, I always tell guys that do leave us because people move on. They want to expand their horizons, etc. I always tell them, if you are doing it for money, it's the wrong decision. But if you are doing it for growth, money will come. Do it for the right reasons. Understand why you're doing it. Don't become complacent. That's the biggest problem I have with guys that leave us, go into the bigger corporates, find a cozy position, they sit there. And I know there's a lot of bureaucracy. I know there's a lot of protocols, there's a lot of things, but it's about how do you manage yourself? How do you ensure that you continuously motivate and grow and develop? Because if you don't do that, I promise you, the technology space moves too quickly. Within a couple of months, you'd be starting from scratch again, or you'd realize as you're looking for a new job, you know what, I'm redundant in the market. So that's my plea to any person, that if you come into IT, understand it's hard work, it's continuous development, motivate yourself, have mentors, keep in touch with Bilal, keep in touch with myself, whoever you're comfortable with, get information, learn what's going on, what are the trends, share information. I always tell guys in the office as well that We have a very flat structure, which means I may be, within quotes, the director, but we don't like to keep that hierarchy. The hierarchy is there when it's time to make business decisions. But when we're working on projects, when we're working on things, we are all peers. We all work together. I could be working in Java for 20 years and a junior could pick up something that I don't know. That's fine. How do we learn from each other? Collaboration, that's what grows individuals. So for me, those are very, very important things. Not to have the fear to learn, not to have the fear to give suggestions or bring forward input, provided, I always tell them, amicably, speak with respect. That's the main thing. Have respect for people around you. That's important. That's how we will grow, and we'll grow from each other. In IT, we have things like code reviews, peer reviews. Those are opportunities to grow. It's to understand and ask why. Why did you send this code back to me? What are we doing here? What's the issue with my code? Oh, we're not following good practice. There's a better way to structure it. Let's look at things like, and I discuss some of these things in the course that I've tried to prepare for you. So what I've actually done with the course, I've shared it internally within my company, and I've asked guys to go through it to tell me how they felt that versus other Java courses. And some of the guys have come back and said, you know what, this is not just a Java course, it's a CS course. You're touching in really deep detail, which you don't get from Java. A lot of guys love to do the diploma degree kind of stuff. This is a syntax. This is how you write something. Whereas what I've tried to do is I tried to emphasize on OO concepts. How do we use them? Why do we use them? What's the benefit of this? How do we create longevity in code, clean code, flexibility, maintainability? These are things we don't find. And there's other concepts as well, which I know a lot of this is jargon and it's going to go over your head. And I say it in my course as well. Things are going to go over your head. No problem. Reach out to me. Ask Bilal. Can I contact with Mubin? No problem. I'm happy to give time to assist people, to develop people. That's why we're here. We want to develop people. That's ultimately it, right? So we speak of all this, the jargon, like technical debt. What is technical debt? How do we reduce technical debt? So I've got a junior guy, and I told him we've built an application for a client, and I told him it's stable, they're happy with it, but I'm not happy. Let's take SonarQube, run it over our code, analyze the code, look for problems in the code. And I got a report from SonarQube, which says our code is 97.5% compliant with standards. Awesome. But there are still certain issues it raises. Going back to those issues, we picked up the code, cleaning up the code, picking up all the minor issues, major issues, fixing up the code, understanding why is it marked as or flagged as an issue. That's development, personal development within the environment. Like I said, we're speaking about Java, but we've got a roadmap for you guys with Bilal, where we want to actually build you guys to become full stack developers. And with that, along the journey, to grow you people into individuals, leaders, right? They say not everyone can lead. Maybe so, but I disagree. I think if you invest sufficiently enough in people and they're willing to learn, they will be able to learn. They will be. So for me, it's about motivating people, growing them, make them understand we all will make mistakes. But I always tell my kids the same thing. The most important lesson is how do you dust yourself off and recover from a mistake, from failure. Failure will happen. Accept that. It's about recovery from it and understanding that I'm allowed to make a mistake. The main thing is I should not make the same mistake twice or thrice. How do I learn from that experience? And then the other thing I always tell the guys in office is, in life, there's always this balance, whether it's in IT, whether it's any decision, I call it the price versus the prize. How much are you willing to pay for a prize? Do you want the prize up front? What's the price it's going to cost you? And the reverse is also true. This could be with anything, with purchasing a vehicle, with buying a home, with doing IT decisions, anything. There's no silver bullets in life. There's always this balance. What's the price for this price? And you'll have to juggle this, whether you're doing architecture, whether you're doing development. You may not get it right. You'll have to rework, but there's a learning from it. The main thing is that if I've got it wrong, what is the price we're paying to fix it up? So the next time I do it better. That's the basic type of advice I would like to give now. But as I've said, with Bilal, we've been engaging, we've been looking at a bigger thing, not just the development side as technical people, but the whole social side as well with it. How do we grow people? Because that's what our country really requires. And that's what we want to do. And that's why this collaboration is beyond just the Java course. It's about getting guys into the market, working with them, developing them. I've got my co-founder partner, Naeem, extremely senior technical architect, brilliant. Those are the people I would want for you to work with. There's so much to learn from him, so much. And he's, I mean, a humble person. Ask him anything and he's willing to help. Those are the people I would love for you to interact with so you can grow yourselves, develop yourselves. And hopefully, in a couple of years, when we see guys creating things, finding solutions, coming up with companies, etc., at least we know we are part of that journey.
That's fantastic, Naeem. Mubin, you're actually making me miss my days as a Java developer. I miss everything that you were talking about. So before I continue, guys, this is your opportunity to ask any questions you want. I see there is a question from Rumesa. So Rumesa's question is to you, Mubin. She says, I've always heard that Java is particularly challenging. What do you think is the most challenging aspect of working with Java, and how do you overcome it?
Okay, so generally speaking, we've got different types of programming languages. We've got scripting languages, and we've got what we call our fourth generation languages, or old language like Java. The biggest issue I find that people have is this transition in mindset, because we're talking of an abstract space, an abstract area, or what's the word I'm looking for? Concepts, abstract concepts. So if we look, people will look, they'll understand basic things like what are data types, what's an if loop, what's a for loop. That's fine. The biggest transition I find is when people have to take something like a specification or understand a problem and transition it into any programming language world. It doesn't have to be Java, any programming language world. Each language has its own little nuances, meaning that if you're writing in JavaScript, it has its own issues. You work with C#, it has its own issues. Java has its own issues. That's specific to the language. But generally speaking, I find the biggest issue people have is how do I transition from my real world into an abstract programming world? What does it mean if someone tells me I need to write a program that deals with cars, for example? I love using cars because it's an entity we see on the road all the time. It's a nice way to be able to transition something from a real world entity into this abstract world we speak about. That's the first part of it. Once you've got, and that's what I've tried to focus a lot on the course, is how do we work with these abstract concepts? How do we get them into the programming world? Because I feel that's the first hurdle. The second part of that is practice. It's like math, it's like science. The more you do it, the more your brain unlocks. It's never going to come easily. You have to, like I said, price versus price. What is the amount of time, as in your price you're paying upfront, for the price at the end, where you're going to unlock it? Each person learns at different rates. And I always say that nobody is stupid, you are just ignorant. We are all born ignorant. And as time progresses, we educate ourselves and the ignorance level drops. Josh Long, I'm not sure if any of you know who Josh Long is. In the Spring community, he's revered. He's a Spring evangelist, brilliant. He does a lot of live coding. Find him on YouTube, find him on X nowadays. Follow him, Josh Long, brilliant. He's been coding, I think, for almost 20 years as well in Spring. And he says, after 20 years, what do I know? Nothing.
That's the ultimate humility, because Josh is, if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the founders of Spring, one of the guys that laid the initial foundations for the Spring framework. But that's also a lesson for us, right? It means just keep learning, and as you learn, and this is the great thing about what the development space is all about, and it's something you alluded to earlier, that it's not just about being comfortable with where you are. It's about exploring new languages, new approaches, new ways of doing things. And that's what makes this job really, really exciting. So, okay, somebody's asked for your contact details. Guys, we won't share that right here on the webinar, but we will share, with Mubeen's permission, we'll share his email address on Slack, on our Slack group. So don't worry about that. Okay, so Azra's question is actually a bit technical. Is there a significant difference between Python and Java?
Yes, so the one is a scripting language, right? The other, we call it a more strongly typed language. So fundamentally, the two languages are a bit different. In a strongly typed language, the way you approach writing your code is a bit different. You have to follow certain rules, etc., for that program to work. And with that, you, depending on the type of language you're working with, there's always pros and cons. So you may get a performance benefit in certain cases, or the barrier to entry is easier maybe in something like Python. But the challenge you have with it, because it's so loosely typed, it's easier to break your code, because and I'm not sure how much you people understand of data types and objects, etc. It's very easy in a scripting language like Python or JavaScript, where the language, without warning you, would change that object. And you would assume by reading your code, this is my expected output, and that's not what happens. So that's the challenge you may have with a scripting language, but the barrier to entry into it is a lot easier. You can get things working faster. And again, languages have use cases. I always tell people, remember, it's like a toolbox, right? You're walking around with screwdrivers, spanners, and hammers. If we are trying to do something, for example, make a hole in a wall to hang a frame, right? We're not going to go just with a screwdriver. You're going to probably go with a hammer, a nail, maybe some bits and drills, etc. So you have to find the right tools in your toolbox for the problem you're trying to solve. And that's the most fundamental thing. Depending on sometimes what happens, we say Java is a more heavier language because we compile it. It takes a bit longer to get it up and running, although there are things like GraalVM and that, which have sped up the process of deployment, etc. But it has a use case. And the use case is when we need to deal with heavy lifting code, meaning complex code that's doing multi-currency, concurrency, multi-threading. Java, generally in that space, is, I would say, the greatest language out there. It's meant for stuff like that. Whereas if we want to deal with AI, we'll find that a lot of the tooling goes or leans towards Python. So again, Java can do it, but maybe for that, Python would be a better fit. So in today's time, again, speaking of the guys out there who we ourselves are looking for guidance from, and then moving forward, they're saying in today's time, if you want to develop in the open source area or space, the languages you need to know are like your TypeScripts, which would power Angular, Vue, etc. You'd need to know Java, Spring Boot or Spring, and Python, because AI is being driven by Python, or Python is driving AI. But remember, you have started your journey. We are speaking about architectural design, where we speak of microservices, we speak of API integrations. What that means is I can write applications in Java, and I can write applications in Python, and I can have them communicate with each other. And they would do the work that best fits their use case. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that don't close yourself off to learning different types of languages. Each one has a purpose. Find the one that fits the use case.
Phenomenal. I mean, what people get carried away with a lot is, and that shows the wisdom of your answer, right? People get carried away with these debates that happen on social media, which is the best language, and Java is bad, and Python is good, or Python is bad, Java is good. And that usually, these are people that have little to no experience. So they just want those views on social media, so that they create that hype. But the fact of the matter, guys, what Mubeen is saying is that every language has its purpose. If you're working in the AI space, then Python is better. If you want to build large-scale commercial applications, then Java is better. And if you are going to use Python, then you will notice that with the frameworks like Fast API, Python starts to act and behave more like Java as the applications get more enterprise and large scale. So either ways, you will find yourself in a position where you have to make that choice. Now, Mubin, on the topic of AI, there's a lot of concern among junior developers, especially among our students also. This question came up when we had a data analyst from Takealot as a guest a couple of weeks ago. How is AI going to impact the developer world? Because there's a lot of doom and gloom out there where people are saying there's not going to be a need for software developers in the future thanks to AI. What's your take on it?
So honestly speaking, like I have this debate around not only software development, but around a lot of industries, because AI is disrupting, right? AI is like what the internet was back in the early, late 90s, 2000s. Everyone was jumping onto this bandwagon. We need to get onto the internet, etc., etc. And again, for me, it's tooling. I look at it as tooling. They have their purposes and they can be used to assist. But at the end of the day, all of these things still requires human intervention. That's the first thing. Second thing, we have a saying in IT, and Bilal will agree with me on this. We say, if you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. That's with AI as well. If you teach it incorrectly, it's going to give you rubbish out as well. So I use a tool called GitHub Copilot in my IDE. It's integrated into the IDE. And when I'm doing the course, you'll see this, and I even mention it because you see code suggestions pop up. And what I do with it is I still review the code that is coming through. Where I think the challenge maybe for the initial guys is barrier to entry into the market, because a lot of people feel, well, hang on, with AI coming along, AI can do X, Y, and Z. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, how efficient is the code? How good is the code? Does it follow standards? Does it meet requirements? All these things. And that's the challenges I think you're still going to have with AI. The next issue you have with AI is if AI generates all the code and tomorrow an application breaks, who is going to go in there, debug the code, fix up the code? If we're so reliant on AI, right, what would happen the day the code doesn't behave correctly? We have performance issues. Things are breaking all over the show. We want to do advanced type of calculations. AI can't manage that. So, the same thing happened when the calculator was created. They said, you may not require accountants, you may not require, but I disagree. I just think what's going to happen is there's going to be evolution in any industry. Same way we're going to have evolution, but it's a tool that can be utilized to improve certain aspects of the process, to get things done maybe a bit faster, sooner, etc. But for me, developers will always be required. You'll always require developers, because who's going to develop the next level of it, right? And we should always look at things like, you can look at things as a glass half empty or glass half full. I feel you should be optimistic, not pessimistic. Look at AI, look at how can it assist me in probably creating a solution. No problem with that, right? The challenges you may have is more around industries that have mundane kind of jobs, call centers, right? Legal clerks, because that kind of stuff, now the documentation can be produced by AI. But again, what's the regulation around that? What are the legalities around that? So the world is grappling as well. So we're talking about coding. The world itself is grappling. They don't even know from a legal aspect what is allowed, what is not allowed. In the Java world right now, there are questions around, is it legal to use AIs in your coding? Because if it's using open source technology, what does it mean about your code? Does your code have to go out as open source? Or are you allowed to charge for it? Right? These are big questions out there in the market. And Bilal knows what I'm talking about, right? Because there's a whole lot of different, what's the word I'm looking for? Certifications, licensing that you apply to your code to say that I'm charging for this, or it's open source and it's free to use. So if you're using code with AI, and that code that comes in, the suggestion comes from an open source technology, right, that wants recognition, what does that mean for your code? So there's a lot of aspects that we have to deal with. So I don't think we should just get afraid, but rather embrace, in my opinion.
And that's something we always encourage. I mean, we're one of probably the few colleges in the world that asks its students to embrace AI rather than banning it, because every other university is banning it, but they don't realize the harm that they are doing. And you know what? I think we all appreciate this because there's so much of doom and gloom talk about AI in the dev space. It's just sickening sometimes. And I think you've clarified it for all of us. So now there's a couple more questions. So Azra wants to know uh, how what do you best recommend we do to prepare ourselves for the work environment? What do people look in a CV or an employee? Is there anything you wish you had known before going into this career field? That's a good question.
Extremely good question. So, and that is true. So a lot of the times, myself as well, can be very open with you and honest with you. I actually want to do go into aviation, and second was computing. So aviation, I did get accepted, but my parents were like of the opinion, what are you going to do in South Africa? There's not much scope in South Africa. So I went into IT, and IT. What drove me to IT was I played a lot of games, video games. So that obviously inspired me. How do these people develop these things, right? And there's probably a lot of people that share that sentiment as well, coming into IT. Oh, I would love to build a video game, etc. And then what you realize is, well, hang on, okay, you are getting indie devs nowadays, but when we in 2000, you couldn't build fascinating games with a two-man team. You needed a lot of expertise and needed to actually work for publishing houses and that abroad. But what did happen obviously is through this journey it becomes more interesting because you're learning different types of technology. And I think what's also very important, where we were fortunate, is meeting the right type of people. So communicating and networking, I think, is extremely important. In any industry, you get the doom and gloom kind of people and those that are extremely advocates for one thing or have a very strong opinion, very strong opinionated, and they can make everything sound poor and bad, and you'd worry about it. And then you get the optimists, those that are motivating. Find those type of people that will encourage you, will guide you. There's so much out there. I mean, today you can learn by yourself. You can achieve a lot compared to when we started. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot of code out there that you can go and actually look at. So I know some of the guys, when they have issues, they actually delve into the Java code, into the Spring code to see some of the stuff that's written inside there, right? Interesting. So you get to see how people write code, like in developing and creating frameworks, etc. So that's like the interesting part that comes in. And at the end of the day, this industry and this type of career, you'll find some people make it and some don't. And the main differentiator is those that are willing to knuckle down, persevere, because a lot of perseverance is required in this job, and they find pleasure in solving problems. If you're that type of a person, you will thrive in this industry. When I say solving problems, I'm not speaking of technical problems only. I tell the guys every day that you are living in the world. Don't live with blinkers. We all have problems. How do we use IT or technology to solve those problems? The people that figure that out, they are the disruptors.
Amazing. I think it's something that Elon Musk said, that you are paid in direct proportion to the size of the problems that you solve. So it's not just about, betting yourself into your code, but looking at the world of business and looking for opportunities, both if you are an entrepreneur, but also for your business, because what businesses need, and this is a recurring theme in all the meetings that I'm having with CIOs and CTOs, chief information officers, chief technical officers, senior developers, is this: we want human beings. We don't want coders. One CIO told me this, and this is very important for you guys. Just yesterday, he said, I don't want a cybersecurity expert. I want a team member. I want a team player who will take the time to understand my whole business. And one director of a company said to me, he was looking for obviously data scientists. He said, I don't want people who ask me what stories to tell from the data. I want people to tell me what stories I need to tell from the data. And to do that, you need to know the business. You need to know what are the problems the business is facing, what are the opportunities, and to be able to formulate that and find solutions from a technical perspective. So
Just to jump in there, Bilal. So that's a very important point, right? So we deal with clients, big clients, small clients, uh, like different types of people, right? Some, it's their personal business. So we're dealing basically with the CEO, right? And what you need to do at that point in time is understand that you have to share the love and desire in his business, right? As he does. So he needs to see that you are eager and you are passionate about his business as much as he is. So we all speak of agile. You've probably heard of agile, but a lot of people say agile's gone wrong. I don't think it's that. I think is we've missed the point. We don't actually employ it correctly, implement it correctly. So the back in the day, people wrote a lot of specifications and words. Words create ambiguity. So what tends to happen is developers still go off and do the wrong thing, right? Designers design the wrong thing. The whole idea of Agile was this collaboration, being able to say, okay, I don't understand it. Let's sit together. Let's work through it. Now I understood what you want. Build it, test it, show it. And it's this continuous engagement, which is very, very important because in today's time, exactly as Bilal is saying, if you are just technical, you're going to be pushed to one side and you're just going to be good enough to just do your work. But to actually grow in the industry, you have to have soft skills. You need to be able to understand, to engage with people. And sometimes those discussions are not easy. You're going to have to learn, how do I deal with these situations? And if you can do that effectively, sometimes within businesses, that is appreciated more than a technical skill.
Phenomenal, because one CEO told me technical skills are learnable, but that passion, the drive for the business that the owner has, and I know how that feels because I'm also a founder just like you. The passion we feel, it's like our next child, and to have an employee that has that kind of passion, you can't buy that anyway. It's something that, and you can't learn that. It's something you can only get from mentors like yourself. So Keenan's question, I think, Mubin, you've already answered. You wanted to know what inspired your love for coding. Oh, okay, there's a second part question. What aspect of it do you love the most of coding?
Honestly speaking, initially it used to be writing code, learning new things, touching new things. You get excited by technology. The biggest challenge is that a lot of things in the industry move so quickly, so you want to touch everything. But over time, you realize, you need to grow deep knowledge as well as fast knowledge. So it's about creating the balance. Because if you know a little bit of everything, it's great. But having deep knowledge of something is just as important, right? You become a specialist in that. You can talk about that. You can assist people. But over time, to be honest, what I really love is working with juniors, working with creative people, youngsters coming into the market, teaching them as much as I can, because through each engagement, there's a learning for yourself out of it. That's what I feel. Everyone sees problems differently. And like I said, there's no wrong answer. It's just a different perspective. It's about understanding and sometimes correcting that. And the challenge is when you've got different mindsets and you have to manage that, hone that, work with that individual, and you grow that person. It's like Pilar says, you like nurturing babies, right? That's what it really is. And when you see it come together, that's like, for me, the most proud moment. Seeing these people, whether it's within our businesses, whether it's they've gone off on their own and they achieve things, that's the beauty of it. That's what I love the most, right? The dislike part, I think the dislike part is when you're engaging with people who, we call them the guys that live in their iron castles, right? Their towers. They don't like to engage. They don't like to share knowledge. They're very abrupt and rude. And you get these people, unfortunately, in the world. They're very opinionated. I don't think that's the way to be. I feel collaboration is important. Working together is important. Being able to have open discussions, to share your opinion. As long as I said, it has to be amicable. How do you approach problems? Sometimes there's frustrations. We understand it. We've got different types of people that we work with within teams on a day-to-day basis. How do you work with that? That's, I think, like the part that I dislike, especially in corporates, is when you've got these people that love to hold on to authority. And because of that, they can sometimes make environments unlikable.
Sometimes it's your co-workers, sometimes it's your clients also. There are times when we had to fire clients and say, you know what, sorry, we don't want to deal with you. You're pure toxic. It's because there isn't teamwork and collaboration. There's just blame shifting and sort of everybody looking after their own back. So that's golden. Guys, now the reason Mubin is telling you all this, he said that you don't become those people. You become exactly what he is talking about in terms of being open and willing to share. So Zulfikar's question, what software do we use to create drones? I think he means to code drones. That would be embedded software, I think C++ or something. Let's go
Yeah.
to,
And
yeah.
I would think it's a type of drone. Some might have APIs. Again, possibly Python could be used.
Mm,
Again, but you'd have to check the drone you're buying and at what level, because some of them have APIs that you can use to configure. Others might be at lower levels, as Bilal is saying. If you want to work with stuff like that, I would say you should start with buy some Legos first. Use Scratch, use Python, program those Legos. Like my kid has his Legos, so I'm fiddling around with it with him, and then you can start going into developing chips so you can get microbits and stuff like that, Arduinos, and play around with those kind of things. Yeah, that's obviously going off and delving into something different. I know IoT, but you can use what's the thing, I think Next Red or Red Next, the one with Python. Bilal, do you remember? You
no.
can use IoT. Okay, I'll try and find it. I'll drop the link.
Absolutely. On the topic of IoT, I had a chat with a CIO of a major security company here in South Africa. And I didn't realize what a massive, burgeoning, growing industry IoT is. And the reason they contacted me, I didn't contact them, is that they are desperately looking for IoT experts, people to set up these systems where, and what they are doing is they are creating this concept of a smart home in South Africa. So things like the camera systems, the alarm system, but even things like appliances are all going to be connected via the internet to the owner. So if you are overseas or somewhere and your geyser bursts, for example, that thing will send you a notification, and then you'll be able to instruct it to switch off or to stop pumping water through. It's actually quite impressive, the list of things they told me they are doing. So definitely something to consider for those of you who are in the, who are considering the IoT space. And that's the great thing about learning to code, right? You're not just confined to one thing. You can go into so many different things. I mean, with Java alone, you can get enterprise software development, mobile development, game development, and the list goes on. So Rumesa's question is, could you share how do you approach collaboration and balance between the client requirements and the company's vision when developing software solutions? Tricky one.
Yeah. So when she speaks about the company's vision, is she speaking about Fingerprint Software's vision, or is she speaking about the client's vision?
Rumesa, you want to clarify that part?
So yeah. So well, anyway, I'll answer it in both ways, right? So if you think of the company, it depends on what type of company you're building, right? So if we like a consulting company, generally how we approach it, and we've actually also got a digital marketing division within our company. So you see, we're also expanding out, right? So the idea behind it is that when you are developing your company, what are your milestones? What do you want to achieve out of it? And finding that balance means you as an owner, right, need to be a leader. And what does it mean? I think that's the biggest question I always have for people. What does leadership mean? Does leadership mean I just delegate to people? Or does leadership mean I lead, I go through the challenges with you, and we share in the gains? And when we have the losses, there's no blame. We accept it as a team, right? We've done something wrong. Within that, you'll see over time, your visions or your milestones or your goals may change. So, Rumesa, what would generally happen, you'd have, I always say, you have short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals. So what do you want to achieve with your short-term goals, right? If that is just consulting, then start there, stabilize, create a stream of work there, try and get 1 or 2 clients. Whilst you're dealing with those clients, understand that you have to ensure that you deliver with the clients, but the balance comes in, how do you invest your time in the client, ensuring that he's happy, but at the same time invest in your own business, your own roadmap, right, in what you want to achieve. And to do that, you're going to have to find like-minded people to work with you. They say the most successful CEOs are those CEOs that find the right people around him, because at some point you are going to drain yourself. You're going to have to find people that you can leverage, use, that share in that vision with you. It's a journey, right? So those who are passionate, those that share in that vision, they are the ones that are going to say, you know what, I'm happy to lead. So at some point they'll say, I'll manage this client. But you then, as the director, the founder, you need to continuously say, what is the vision of our company? This never ends because companies pivot all the time, right? Amazon, best example, went from selling books to they like supplying you with cloud servers and APIs and all this fancy software stuff. Look at the pivot that they did, right? In the same way, you'll find many businesses have done this. They start out with a certain vision, and after some time, they realize we need to pivot, we need to change. That comes from the directorship. Now, I'm saying directorship, it's not generally one person, it could be several people that together would create this vision going forward. These things would change over time. The biggest challenge as a founder is you can't just consider yourself to work an 8-hour daily job. If that's what you want, you're not going to found a business. It takes a lot of effort to create a business. It means after hours. Owning your client is just as important as owning your business. So you need to split your time, watch what's happening, know what's going on with your clients, find the right people to lead those clients when you are able to do so. Uh, be willing to give responsibility. That's also part of leadership, right? Trusting people, saying, I trust you to lead. And if you are stuck or you're unable to do something, my door is open. Let's chat. Let's collaborate. So collaboration happens at every level, right? It's happening within your business, with your peers, with your colleagues. And I love to speak in those type of ways, like my friends, my colleagues, my peers. I don't like to have this disgusting words like, oh, my employee. No,
Mhm.
we work together, we achieve together, right? We invested in this together, and when we achieve certain outcomes, we share in it together. That's important, right? And then the same thing goes with the vision of the company. They'll start sharing the vision of the company. But to lead also means you need to then have your goals in place. You need to try and set out what you're trying to achieve. Is that you want to create a product, but your problem is you can't capitalize your product, so you're trying to capitalize it using consulting work? Then you need to have a plan for that, right? What you need to achieve to ensure you've got the stable set of income coming in, at which point it's either yourself or you're going to employ people to start developing. So that's investment now. So you're thinking in a very different way now. You're not, and you're going to have to wear these multiple hats, right? At some point, you're going to be a developer. Other points, you're going to be some type of finance guy. Then you're going to have to be an HR person. Then you're going to have to be a salesperson. So running a business requires a lot of dedication, a lot of effort, and a lot of learning. And I always say, like I said in the beginning, we don't know everything. You must be willing to accept it and say, I'm willing to learn.
Mhm. Phenomenal. That willingness to learn is what drives you as an entrepreneur. And I feel you 100% because at any given time, I'm the chief software developer, chief marketer, chief accountant, chief delivery boy, and everything in my business. So you must be willing to do what it takes. Um, just a couple more questions, but we have run out of time. So, okay, there's one question from, I think this is appropriate at this stage. The others are a bit technical. From William Maestri, what advice can you give us students who would like to enter the field? I think this, let's close on this. This is a very good parting question.
So I would say the first thing is, if you want to enter any field, right, you need to maybe job share and understand what are the requirements of that field. That's the first thing. The second thing is to be honest. I always tell people, be honest to yourself. Nobody, as I said again, nobody's stupid. We're all ignorant. So as time goes on, we learn. Sometimes it's a fit, sometimes it's not a fit. Doesn't mean you can't work in the IT space. Just means you may not be a developer, but you could still be a business owner in IT because you understand the concepts, the technology, how to utilize it. Maybe you are the disruptor. Maybe you are the one that understands how to put things together, but you don't have the technical capability. That's fine. You find someone that can do technical capability. But for me, it's all about being honest to yourself, number one, understanding what the job entails, and then realizing for yourself, is this something that I love to do and I'm capable of doing or not, right? I'll give you an example. Within our company as well, our MD is the finance person, Ayub, and he comes from a financial background. At times we have these blowouts because we need to do this from technical capabilities. Like, I don't see the value in it because he's looking at the money, and we have these big arguments. And the reason is because, unfortunately for him, he can't see the technical space, and for us, we can't see the financial space. And that's a reality, right? So sometimes what it means is you have to go further and say, am I this type of person that can sit there, accept I'm going to solve problems every day of my life, I'm going to persevere, I'm going to learn new technology, I am going to get frustrated because it's not going to work the first time, it may not work the second time, and then the third time I'm going to get this light bulb moment, it's going to work, and that's when I'm going to find all this joy in the world, and it's going to spur me on to continue. And if that's the type of person you are, then this is the industry for you, right? But generally speaking, in today's time, any industry, you have to knuckle down like that, in all honesty. If you are just going to throw in the towel, then unfortunately complacency will set in, and yeah, the rest will just be history.
That's so true, because I mean, if you look at it today, pretty much every industry is becoming a tech industry. In fact, that CIO that I spoke to yesterday, they were traditionally in the guarding and alarm system industry, and he said, you know what, we are now a tech company more than anything else. So I mean, tech is so pervasive, and you guys will be in demand. But you know what, Mubin, I don't want to hold you up. I really appreciate your taking the time. I know how hectic you are, and I think our students benefited a lot. Now we get a percent of them who attend the live webinar, but the rest of them watch it after we upload to YouTube. And I think this is going to be extremely valuable to all our students. Guys, once again, thanks for being here. And as you can see, I mean, we're only bringing the top-notch people here to speak to you. And what makes Mubin more special is that those of you who have enrolled for the Java course, this is your instructor, and he's not just a lecturer, but this is a person who's, in a manner of speaking, who's been around the block, who's started his own business, and who is very successful as a Java developer. So I hope you are seeing the value in this. I mean, if you want a Java course, go and get something for free on YouTube. But if you want to become a software engineer who's going to be an absolute asset in your workplace, then this is the place to be. Thanks a lot, guys. Mubin, once again, Jazakallah, thank you so much. Shukran. I really appreciate your time. And I think you can expect some emails from some of the students. We'll share only your email address on Slack, and we'll appreciate your feedback to them. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah, I appreciate the opportunity. Love speaking with young people coming to the market. I always say it's a different perspective. You guys are the guys that have the pulse. You know what's happening, what's coming out there. We are the older guard. Our job is not to hand over the baton, as to say. And yeah, you guys have the opportunities to thrive. You can carve out your own careers, your own lives. Even within the course, certain concepts, as I have mentioned, maybe a bit challenging. I'm happy. I'll speak to Bilal. We can maybe try and set up sessions where we can do it interactively. I love sessions where it's interactive because sometimes talking, I say, to the wall is difficult. I don't know if you've understood or haven't understood. So we can try and do things like that as well afterwards. At the end of the day, our vision is the same, Bilal and ours, is just to basically empower you people.
Thanks, Mubin. Thanks, guys. Bye.